What's going on, everyone? This is going to be the video going over our first trunking lab. So we're going to start off this lab like we do all of our other labs. And the first thing we're going to do is turn on all of our devices. And again, for you guys taking our free course on YouTube or any other platform not on our website, you will have to recreate these labs. But for our paid CCNA course students, these labs are all available to you on your Google Drive as long as you upload them to EvenG, as long as a free EvenG VM, which also comes with all these labs. All right. So step one, turn on all devices. We're going to do that by coming over here to more actions and hitting start all nodes. And then we're just going to go off our instructions here. Our instructions are also located on our GitLab, which is in the link below if you're watching from YouTube. And if you're on our paid course, you should have the link that takes you directly to it as well. So what I'm going to do is just go ahead and console into these. And I say console, but in reality, EvenG is using Telnet. So, I mean, remote into them would be fine, but we just say console because this is a lab environment, right? So we're pretending like we got lab equipment right in front of us, except it's emulated. So I'm going to go grab our baseline from Git, and I'm already here. So if we go to the root of this repository, come down here to Cisco IOL switch baseline because I'm using IOL images. I'm going to copy this to the clipboard, come back to the EvenG topology, Alt-Tab over to my secure CRT, and then I'm going to right-click, and before I completely paste in this, I'm going to switch up this host name. I'm going to do the same thing to switch 1. And again, secure CRT lets you confirm your paste. However, if you're using PuTTY, you may need to do this from a notepad. All right. And then step 3, verify all VLANs are correctly assigned and created. So for you guys in our paid course, these switches should come configured already. But for this video, I don't have a startup config in these switches, so we're going to do that ourselves. So we type in do show VLAN brief on both our switches. None of our VLANs are actually created. So let's go ahead and do that ourselves. And this is going to be really easy. It's just one VLAN, VLAN 10, name sales, and interface ETH00, description, VLAN 10 sales, then switch port mode access, switch port access VLAN 10. We'll go ahead and do this on switch 2 as well. Sales, interface ETH00, description, VLAN 10 sales, and then switch port mode access, switch port access VLAN 10. Awesome. So kind of a little going over VLANs one more time before we get into our trunks. And now step 4. Create static trunk from switch 1 to switch 2. I'm going to zoom in here for us as well. And what we're going to do here is go ahead and create a static trunk. So we're going to do that on ETH0/1 on both sides. So we're going to type in interface ETH0/1. Let's go ahead and give this a description. Trunk switch 1. And let's try to do this, switch port mode trunk. And let's see if it accepts this command. And no, we get an error. So what does that say? Command rejected. An interface whose trunk encapsulation is set to auto cannot be configured to trunk mode. Okay, so what this is saying is that this switch port operationally is set to auto mode, which means it can dynamically form an access port or a trunk. So we can't just put this into trunk mode unless we hard set our encapsulation to 802.1q. And how do we confirm this? How do we confirm what this error is saying is true? We can do this command right here. Show interfaces ETH0/1, and then add the switch port command at the end. And then if we come back up here, I know there's a lot to digest, but here's the beginning. Look at our administrative trunking encapsulation. It's negotiate, which means auto, right? So that command or that error we got is true. we need to hard set this to 802.1q before we can change the actual mode of that switch port to trunk. So let's do that. With that command, we do switch port trunk encapsulation .1q. Just to show you that we can pick negotiate or ISL, which is that Cisco proprietary one that we'll never use. Awesome. Now I'm going to hit up arrow. Let's run this command again. And now look at it. Now we're hard set to .1q, whereas before we were in negotiate. So I'm going to come back down. I'm going to hit Control C. And now we can do switch port mode trunk. Boom. Easy day, right? Switch 1, we're going to do the exact same thing, except without all those show commands, it's going to look a little cleaner. So switch port trunk encapsulation .1q, switch port mode trunk. All right, awesome. And again, if you think I'm going through these commands rather quick, if you're taking notes, study however you want. But I've noticed the best way that a lot of my students have studied is to watch, and then they'll have a handout or they'll use Google to try to run through the instructions. And then that's really the best way to learn, is to watch, do, and then if you get stuck, luckily you can just rewind this video or make it go in slower motion when it comes to actual configuration. But all right. And again, for our paid students that paid for this course, you also can get shipped to you our Trepa Technologies command book, which is a nice little thing just to have on hand, especially for any of our military customers that go to the field where there is no internet and you can't Google these commands. So, okay, without getting too off topic here and enough selling, let's verify the trunk is created. So what we're going to do now is our show command to look at our trunks. Show interface is trunk. And awesome, we see that our trunk port ETH01 is made. The mode is on, which means it's formed statically with the command switch from mode trunk. And then we're using that 802.1q encapsulation. We see our native VLANs 1, and then we see all the VLANs a lot on the trunk and other information. All right, now let's go ahead and test reachability between our PCs. So now we're going to just console into both these PCs because we're going to set an IP address on them. So we're going to do IP 192.168.10.3/24. And we're going to do the same thing on PC4, 192.168.10.2/24. Oh, let me put IP there. Okay. And before I do this ping test, what I'm going to do here is start a capture on ETH01. And you're going to notice in my labs, I love to do Wireshark captures because, I'm just a guy on the internet talking to you about what is happening here. But let me actually prove it, right? Let me prove to you what's actually happening on the wire by doing an actual packet capture. So now let's test reachability. Now, how do we do that in networking? We're going to do a ping, an ICMP message. So we're going to ping 192.168.10.2. And we have reachability. So let's go ahead and look at that Wireshark capture, and let's look at that Ethernet frame on that ping. So first thing we did was that ARP request. And on the trunk, look at what we have here. We have the 802.1 encapsulation on our Ethernet frame, showing us the actual ID of 10. Pretty cool, right? That trunk is now allowing that VLAN 10 traffic. Whereas in our previous lab, this wasn't possible because that connection between switch to switch wasn't allowing this tag across. But with our trunk, we can allow any VLAN ID across. And you can see that here. So awesome. Now that we've completed this lab, very simple trunking lab, right? Just quick, down to the point, how to form a trunk, how do we get online. In our next lab, we're going to be just a little bit more in depth. We're going to do some trunk pruning, maybe change the native VLAN for our switches. And then we're also going to do we're going to form trunks via dynamic trunking protocol. So stay tuned.